All right, thank you all for joining us for the Citation Manager Showdown workshop. Today's workshop speakers are Priscilla Finley and Sue Wainscott with the UNLV Libraries. Priscilla and Sue are going to discuss when and how to use two different key citation management software applications. I will now hand it over to Priscilla to get us started.
Thank you. Thanks for having us today. So when we announced the workshop, we said two. We're actually going to discuss three Citation Manager products that are available to you at UNLV. I'm Priscilla Finley from the libraries. This is my colleague, Sue.
Hi, mic check.
Sue, did you want to, so the three citation management packages that we'll be talking about today are Mendeley, RefWorks, and Zotero. Each of them is a great tool for building a personal library to organize your sources. They all do a pretty good job at creating citations and bibliographies and formatting them in your writing. And we're going to help you compare the three and select the best ones for your needs. We have a web page that will accompany this. Sue's going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. I'm going to paste the link into the chat, and I think we've got a QR code set up. So if you're not in a place where you have a mouse, you can access it through your camera.
So holler at me when I need to move to the next slide.
I think we're ready to go.
Okay, so that's us. Here. So is this my slide? Priscilla, we've done this in a year, so.
Yeah, go right ahead. Thank you.
All right, forgive me, y'all. So what does a citation manager piece of software do? You've made a good call being here today because these are great tools for building a personal library of citation data, citation details, to organize the sources that you're using and for creating citation. So these things, they gather up the data for the information sources that you're using as you're reading and annotating, which I just caught the tail end of, good stuff. And then they help you to generate citations as you're writing your own materials, and then create that list of sources used at the end of your writing. And importantly, it helps you switch easily between different citation styles, which is one of my favorite things to watch it do. So because we're a large group, do use the chat box for questions, and we will field them as we go along. So we were inspired by the Olympics when we first created this workshop. So we're kind of using an ice skating theme, and I've even got some like snowflake earrings going on to try and manifest cooler weather. So you might see some ice skating references around. So the compulsory round in ice skating, figure skating competitions is an opportunity to demonstrate some key skills, right? So we're flipping the content a little bit to save some time, and on the web guide for the workshop, which again, there's the QR code in the slide, and also the link is in the chat box. You can see short 5 minutes or less demonstrations for each of these three tools, Mendeley, RefWorks, and Zotero, showing some of the basic things that each of them can do. So we encourage you to look at those kind of on your own time and at your own leisure. And oops, the QR code is still there if you're catching up. All three of these software tools, Mendeley, RefWorks, Zotero, can capture those citation data details, organize your reading, keep your notes together, add citation to what you're writing, and change between citation styles and formatting very easily, and can help you to share reading lists with your colleagues, with your research advisor, with your collaborators. Or your students if you want to use them in your teaching too, some creative use of these tools.
So the bulk of our presentation is going to focus on helping you figure out what will work best for your situation. There's not one best one. If you ask which one formats citations the most accurately, when you watch the videos, you'll see that there's not much difference. They all use the exact same open source library of citation styles, and they all allow you to customize styles to suit your specific project. So to use a 1980s computing term, they're all GIGO. Let's say good data in, good data out, or garbage in, garbage out. And since the quality of data that goes in is dependent on the source it comes from, the amount of data cleanup that you'll need to do could be minimal or could be substantial. Each program does have an autocomplete feature where it will fill in details for an incomplete citation. As of today, none of the ones we're looking at use any of the next generation GPT or other AI models for any tasks. So we hope you'll be free of hallucinations.
Here we go. So now on to the next phase of our competition. So we've established that everyone has this nice baseline of functionality. So Freeskate is a little more creative, and you get to be the judge in this instance. So we're going to run through some of the differences and unique features of these tools. And so we're going to discuss their features and, frankly, some of the quirks of a couple of these tools that will help you select the best one. So let's get started with Mendeley. Show me. There you go. Okay. So Mendeley.com is one of the tools that a lot of folks, particularly in engineering and some of the sciences, like to use. It'll again allows you to store information, edit it, cite it, annotate the materials that you use, and then use them as bibliographic references in your writing. So it was created by a couple of engineering graduate students several almost decades ago, my goodness, and was purchased and is still owned by the Elsevier Publishing Company, which might be a familiar name to some of you. They're a very large corporation. And perhaps because of this development history, it's still very good at journal article citation data. And honestly, not so great at some of the other format types like government reports, books, web data, things like that. But it's really good if you're primarily using journal articles, conference papers, that type of stuff in your writing. So if that's what you do, this might become your favorite tool. Some of the limits of Mendeley are that it has limited function when you're working offline. So if you need to be on a really long plane ride and don't want to pay for Wi-Fi, or if your way of getting work done is to go offline so that you're distraction free, this may or may not be the proper tool for you. And there is a limit to the free storage you get for your data and attached files. And of particular note, if there are any current Mendeley users, we're going back down to the free account limit at the end of October of this year. And that is 2 gigabytes total for your storage limit for free accounts. So if any of you are in a boat where you think you've got more than 2 gigs, let me know and we'll work through some alternatives for you. One of which is to pay for an expanded account, but there's other ways. Oh. Okay. The main reason that I continue to use Mendeley is because I have group members that use Mendeley, and we have groups where we are sharing the citation data and the associated files. So these groups are really nice because everybody kind of has co-equal rights. You can add and delete data and files, including multiple files for each item. You can edit the citation data, annotate the attached PDF files, and then everybody's able to create citations in your writing using the group data. With the free account system, you can own up to 10 of these groups and then be a member of as many additional groups as you like. So if you have a research team with a lot of projects going on, there's ways that you can maximize all of your free available groups. And importantly, Elsevier, this major publishing company, continues to support the full text PDF files of the contents under US copyright fair use principles. And you can have collaborators who are not part of the university system. You can have collaborator group members that are anyone who can have a free Mendeley account. Yeah. And I mentioned annotation. You can not only add highlights and comment boxes to a PDF file, you can also have kind of this group space, which is shown on the far right of the screen, called a notebook, that really functions a lot like a spiral bound print notebook, where you can have notes about different things. And importantly, you can add a highlighted section of a paper to your notebook, and then it links back to the original source. So it's really nice if you want to keep track of direct quotations, and then anything else that you write, it would be a nice workflow practice for you to have that be in your own words. So you can see the difference between a direct quotation and a paraphrase in your writing. You will need to keep track in the notebook of where that paraphrase is coming from, where your notes on the subject are coming from, because that notebook can contain direct quotes and information about multiple items in your library. So it's something to get used to using, but it can be really powerful. Okay, as I mentioned, Mendeley is a software tool that is owned by the Elsevier or RELS PLC, private liability company, I believe. Anyway, stock trade. So owned by a large corporation, which means that it is very likely to work really well with the products that they own. And for science and engineering folks, that is a large number of your, my mouse is again not working as expected. There we go. A large number of things that you may be using. Yeah. So as you are looking at the sources you're using, keep an eye out and see if you're seeing this little add to Mendeley button at the bottom of your screen. It's a clue that you might be a prime candidate to use this product to store your citation data. Because it is a large corporation and they are global, not based in the US, I believe. They do have global support staff, which is lovely. There's usually somebody online. Sometimes they're not as responsive as an instant message, but they do have robust staffing. But I will note that sometimes they use a date format on their support blog posts that confuses me because it like flips the month and day. But just keep an eye on that and think about whether it works for you. So again, I'd mentioned earlier that you can do some work when you're offline and don't have internet connectivity, but one of the things that you need to do while you're online is synchronize your data, and that's when you're able to use that Microsoft Word add-in site that links your library, your personal library of information to your writing and can insert things into your writing and properly format it. Notice that the site tool, because it requires an internet connection, you're able to use it on many different computers. But again, one of the limits is that it works with Microsoft Word and only Microsoft Word. But I believe nearly all of the versions of Microsoft Word. So no matter how you get your access to the Microsoft Office Productivity Suite, it should be very compatible with it. And there are some other features with the Mendeley product. When you have your, you're looking at your library online in the lower left-hand corner of the window, as you scroll all the way down, you'll see tools like datasets is currently active. They had a careers focused tool for a while, and these things pop up and they try them out and then sometimes they go away. But right now you can use the Mendeley online tool to search for available datasets, which I know is really valuable for some of you who need datasets to crunch or look at for structure or maybe use in your modeling work. And here we go. Agile software development is in progress. They're continually improving the product. Sometimes they roll things out before I think they're ready. And right now, I don't think their duplicate detection and removal feature is quite as robust as I would like. So it's not my favorite for that type of purpose, but it shows promise. They're getting there. So with that, are there any questions in the chat about basic Mendeley? We might hold some of the more challenging, complex questions to the end, but I just wanted to make sure that we had clarity on what Mendeley can and cannot do. Hearing and seeing none, let's keep rolling. To RefWorks. It's still me. Let me back up one. Here we go. So RefWorks is another software program that you have access to through the university libraries. It's a citation software tool that is part of the ProQuest universe of library products, databases, and content. It's currently owned by yet another large corporation named Clarivate, and they are actively accumulating other tools. They just grabbed another one last year that is changing my world. So this is really useful because, again, it may work really well with the library databases that you're familiar with and use quite a bit. RefWorks actually has some integration with the library website search tool that some of you may be accustomed to using. So that's something to keep in mind. And note that with Mendeley and with RefWorks, the companies that own them are using your data to improve their products. So it's something to think about when you're making a software choice is who has control over your data and how might they be using it? And is that totally fine with you? And is it totally fine with your funding agencies? So it's something for some of my engineers and scientists to pay close attention to. So RefWorks is really nice for those who are more mobile in your computing. It's totally cloud-based. There's no local software to install, but for a little add-in into your word processor. So you don't need to download and execute a huge install file. It is designed to save and organize citations and abstract data. You do have this lovely large storage limit, so you can add additional files if you need to. And you're able to share parts of your library with other RefWorks users. However, this is where who can be your collaborator in that sharing matters, because they need to be a part of an organization like a university that has a RefWorks account. There's no private individual RefWorks accounts available. So something to think about if you need to do a collaborative storage situation. Does it allow number? Oh, I do have a question I see coming in from chat. All of these three tools and the others that we're not talking about can handle the numerical styles, like with the brackets or with endnotes or footnotes. All of them can handle those styles. They use the same centralized library of styling, and you can just bounce right back and forth. Like I edit in a parenthetical style like APA and then move to whatever my journal or conference is requiring. So getting back to RefWorks, there is this nice tool that you may have noticed inside of your RefWorks account if you've taken a look at it, where you can search within a database. At UNLV, we only have PubMed configured, but it's a really powerful tool for a lot of you if you want to be within your RefWorks account view and search all of PubMed's content. It also, because it's owned by the same company, RefWorks links into ProQuest's user account. So if you have set up your ProQuest user account, like for instance, if you work with historical newspapers, or if you do a lot of large set downloads from ProQuest databases, this is a really nice feature for you. And as I mentioned a little earlier, the library's main search tool on our website, which is called Quick Search, you may or may not have noticed that naming. It has a RefWorks export button as well, because it's part of the ProQuest universe, or well integrated with it. So a lot of times folks will use the database or the library tool, Quick Search, to search and then select the items that they want within their search results, and then use that upload or download export to RefWorks button, and it comes in quite beautifully. One of the quirks of RefWorks is that its default is not to grab the associated PDF full text file. By default, it grabs the data, and it grabs the data really nicely, assuming that it has good data to grab. You can add the PDFs, but you do need to download them and drag them in one at a time. But a lot of us have a workflow where we want to review the title and the abstract first anyhow, before we grab all of those associated files. So it's something that you can learn to live with. And then it's also very nice is that it has a great lookup tool where you can add that digital object identifier or the ISSN number for a book, or the title of an item, and it will go out and search within the databases to bring back the other citation data. And then you can verify that it's correct. So organizing, this is another kind of unique feature, I believe, of RefWorks. You can have multiple projects which are effectively like separate libraries that have folders within them, which is really handy for some types of evidence synthesis projects where you need to grab a bunch of stuff, work with it, and then kind of migrate it over and work with it in a different way. You can also have pretty robust tags within each of your items to help organize them further. And then RefWorks also has pretty robust variations on how you can view the items in your library. One that I particularly like is shown on the bottom here, where you're kind of previewing what the styled citation will look like. So you can quickly see if you're missing information that you're going to be using in your work. And RefWorks is one of the tools that is quite good at deduplicating items. What it will do is identify similar looking items within your library, in this case within your project, but your main library, and then it will highlight the differences among the things that it has detected are similar, and then give you very clear power over which one you keep. So I think it's really quite good at that. And if there are no clarifying questions, I will hand it over to Priscilla.
Thank you. So the option here I'm here to advocate for is Zotero. Zotero is an open source, free to use citation management tool. I've used all three of the managers that we're looking at today. For my research, Zotero works the best. I'm a humanities scholar. Many of my sources are books or websites or historical primary sources, things that may not be available easily in PDF form. And I also need a system that lets me store related files like screenshots or notes or photos. The trade-off is that I choose to pay a little bit for extra storage in my Zotero account in the cloud. So the sources I use range from interactive web pages where I'm building a chart that I need to take a screenshot of, to a 100-year-old primary source from a historical print reference book that isn't available online anywhere. Zotero, because it was developed by an organization that was catering to the needs and desires of humanities scholars, their collection tool is well suited for collecting things like book chapter citations or podcasts or conference proceedings or print books or maps or government documents. When I add them to my library, Zotero recognizes that something isn't a journal article, whereas the default in the other two citation managers is to assume that it's importing a journal article. It fills in the appropriate fields that are needed for my preferred citation style. So Zotero was designed by researchers in the humanities. The competitors are designed and maintained by information vendors who optimize access to the specific kinds of information that they distribute. I can add a physical book that's sitting on my desk to my Zotero library using a barcode scanner on my phone. Zotero also keeps track of articles that have been retracted. If an article that you collect is retracted or added to the Retraction Watch database, it will be flagged in your library with a link to the explanation of why Retraction Watch has flagged that article. If you want to keep track of new articles that are being published in particular social media channels or in the table of contents of new issues of a journal, if you have saved searches or current awareness alerts, you can review those in your Zotero account. I have a saved search that shows me when new articles mentioning Las Vegas come out in history journals. So it creates a feed in my Zotero account that shows me a title and links me out to the article. And then it's very easy for me to add that directly to my library or just to go and read it from there. I like to take notes and keep them with my sources. Zotero lets me attach multiple files to each item in my library, so I may attach a PDF of an article, but I may have a text file with notes or with direct quotations from the article and the citation information about exactly where those came from, or photos, or screenshots of an original page, or whatever. I can set Zotero to automatically rename the PDF files on my computer. So if I'm searching so that I can add a file to attach to an email, it has a meaningful name and not just a 7-digit number as the document title. If I'm reading articles from my Zotero collection on my iPad, I can annotate on the document with a pencil, an Apple Pencil, or the keyboard. I can also highlight text and then have the quotation pulled out to a separate text file that gets stored alongside the article. Then when I'm writing in Google Docs, I can just drag that text file. It will take the direct quotation. It'll also have the citation information attached right to that same file. One last note-taking feature is that Zotero can capture a screenshot of any web page that you collect a citation from. So it's not unusual for online newspaper articles to be updated as new information comes to light. The snapshot, the screenshot, will document exactly what was published at the time I viewed the page, and then the URL will go to whatever the current version of that page is. So Zotero is also documenting as I go so that I have that archive of previous versions. Your use of the cloud in Zotero is optional. If privacy is important in your project, You can run Zotero without connecting it to the cloud. You can store everything in a secure location on your drive that you control. I like the convenience of syncing my articles to my iPad and laptop, so I choose to pay a little extra so that I can use their cloud storage. Because it's independent from information vendors and because it's open source, I would argue that Zotero offers the most flexibility. If you need to keep your data private, you can. If you're willing to do a bit of legwork, there are lots of ways you can configure Zotero to work in very specific contexts, to work with my Dropbox, for example. There is a large user community who has made lots of modifications to Zotero and who can help you set the tool up to get your work done. So if you cite books and other non-PDF sources regularly, or if you like the idea of filing notes alongside articles, or if you need to be notified when a paper is retracted, Zotero might be a good option for you.
So we don't have speaker's notes for this slide. Here's a quick summary of some of the differences that we noted as we were developing this version of the webinar, and some of them are very particular to your situation, your needs, and your preferences. It's been my observation over the last, I don't know, 5 years. Most people will like the look and feel of one of these. Or there may be a particular feature like that barcode scanning for books that is just super efficient for you. And then you adapt to the rest of Zotero. Some of the things that I've found were a deciding factor is whether or not your data can be completely offline and you can do everything you want to do. If you have a group or your preference is to use something other than Microsoft Word, Mendeley is probably not the tool for you. And then whether or not any of your collaborators can get a free account and then be a part of that collaborative group is also a bit of a deciding factor for some folks. So that is kind of all we had on the direct comparison, but we also wanted to kind of prompt some thinking and maybe get some discussion from you all. Do all the AI tools make these citation management software things a little bit obsolete? What do you think, Priscilla?
I think not yet. I think that if you want formatted citations, you will get probably equivalent accuracy, slightly better accuracy, maybe using a dedicated tool like a citation manager as opposed to asking a tool like ChatGPT to do it. Can the more advanced GPT tools format citations for you? Yeah, they can, but they can't organize your articles. You'd have to, it would be a lot of work to create a prompt to get a tool like ChatGPT to give you equivalent output to what you would get from one of these dedicated tools, I think. But that said, there are some pretty incredible tools that are being developed to go beyond what a citation manager can do, to start to help you compare articles to one another and categorize articles by the methods that are being used or the conclusions that they are drawing. So those AI features may be more compelling than it can format my citations. But in
And
terms of, yeah, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I think at some point, so one of the things you can do is you can try one of these citation tools and move the data between them and the files with a little more, the attached files with a little more effort. I think that if not already soon, the tools, which I'm going to bump to the next slide real quick. These are just a few of them. They will get better about porting the data. So you can use potentially one of these tools and then get the citation information and put it in your citation management.
I don't think we can hear you anymore, Sue.
Really?
Oh, I can
sorry.
hear.
You talk. Okay. Maybe I mumbled. But I think these tools will start to integrate with the other tools. And in fact, I'm just realizing some library search tools in law, and I believe Scopus and some of the other large databases are beginning to have an AI search augmentation where the summary and things like that. And there's been a a variety of AI recommending related articles for quite some time anyhow, or something close to it.
Yeah, one distinction to be aware of, the tools on this slide all are trained on data that may include academic data. There's a specific, the Semantic Scholar data set is sort of a large data set of academic journal articles that are, and abstracts that are pulled together from a number of information vendors. But that doesn't mean that it reflects all of the scholarly output that is available. So when you are selecting articles on your own from a database or from your own searches, and adding them to a citation manager, you are ingesting the content that you have personally decided is relevant to your project. These tools that are grabbing data from a big data set that we don't really know what is included and what isn't included, it could mean that there are some very significant publications that they don't have access to because they don't have an agreement with the publisher of those. So you have a lot more control and precision over where the input comes from with a traditional citation manager as opposed to a tool like Elicit or Consensus.
Mhm.
So if you are experimenting with one of these, a question to ask is to find out where it gets the information that it's drawing from.
Mhm. And we do have a question in the chat, asking how we feel about Purdue OWL. Love. That's a heart.
I have more complex feelings about Purdue OWL. They got bought actually by the Chegg company,
Oh.
which is and so for a while there was some heavy advertising on the site that you'd have to watch a video to get access to pieces of information, because Chegg is one of the it tries to monetize student needs and desires in various ways. But the Purdue OWL, as it was originally conceived, was a lot of really great information put together by employed grad students whose job it was to sit down and sort of write explainers on how to do a lot of writing and formatting tasks. It doesn't automate anything as far as I know. So are you aware of any automatic formatting that Purdue will do?
I'm not, but it makes me wonder if they rolled something out that I've just missed. I use it to double check, like electronic sources are forever evolving. How do you cite this, that type, or another of electronic information sources? So I use it more as a reference site, but so I use also, Zotero has a thing where you can online just drop in a title and it will, if it can find it, or drop in a DOI and it will create a formatted citation, ZBib, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of these tools, they have limits. They don't often know what the proper nouns are to capitalize, regardless of the citation style for a title of an article versus a book versus a journal title. So there's always got to be some level of checking, either by you or maybe the journal editor pays for a copy editor to make things beautiful and useful. So I think that there are some of the mechanics of citations can be outsourced with minimal risk, but I think that the human component is that you need to be aware of what is being cited in your work and be able to explain and understand how it's being used, because that writing, especially for a thesis and dissertation, is a demonstration of your value as a scholar. And I would not want to outsource all of that. Yeah, and mechanical errors, they happen. Partially it's that, well, garbage in, garbage out is what I remembered. You had a kinder GIGO definition earlier. So if the data comes in all caps, the citation tool can't figure out how to uncap that. And if something's just missing or the metadata is not encoded correctly on the source side, then the tool can't grab it and put it in the right box in your library. So there's a little bit of cleanup work that a human needs to do. And all the format types are evolving too, so, they can't keep up any faster than their programmers can. Any other questions? Anybody want to give a shout out to one of the 3 tools? Or a big thumbs down? We usually have at least one person who's got a lot of experience and a strong opinion in this group, but maybe not this season. Shout out for Zotero, yay! It's actually the one that I'm using for my personal work the most. Before we lose people, this is how you can contact us. Shoot us an email And there's also on the main library website, a meet with a librarian option where you can, find time to, schedule an appointment one-on-one with many of the librarians, at Lead and the other branch libraries. So check it out. We're here. There's no like mandatory meeting. There's no, you may never meet with the librarian more than 3 times while you're here. My graduate school said, you get 1 hour with a librarian while you're a graduate student. And I said, no, thanks. You're gonna limit me, I'm not gonna bother. So,
We've got some workshops coming up too. Sue's got a workshop in a couple of weeks or in about a month, right? About how to migrate in between citation managers. And I'll be offering one on getting started with Zotero. My colleague Richard Saladino and I will be getting a RefWorks sort of body doubling session where folks can set up RefWorks account and practice using RefWorks for the first time. And Sue's got a Mendeley workshop at some point in the fall semester
later in
coming
the
up as well.
semester. But we're available whenever. I'm happy to talk about. I'm more happy to talk about Mendeley and Zotero because I'm more familiar with them now, but I can also talk through RefWorks. I just haven't used it as frequently in the recent past. We'll unshare my screen.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sue.
There we go.
Expertise with us today, Sue and Priscilla. And thank you to all of you that joined us here today to learn about these topics. We will be posting this workshop on the Graduate College YouTube channel for your reference, and have a great rest of your day.